But first, today the Voice referendum passed the Senate. Between October and December this year, Australians will have a vote on whether there should be a voice to Parliament. This means both Indigenous recognition and a body that gives advice on Indigenous issues to the Parliament and the Executive. The moment it passed the Senate, there was loud applause on one side of the chamber.
I declare that the Senate has passed the constitutional alteration Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice 2023 by an absolute majority, the ayes 52 and the noes 19.
While the coalition is voting no, they did support the referendum going through the Senate to give every Australian a say. But today, the politicians had their say.
But this is a critical moment in our country's history. It is the right thing to do.
The Voice is four things. It's risky, it's unknown, it's divisive and it's permanent.
Just because you can say that you've got a connection with this land for 65,000 years, I don't care. Just because you got your cave paintings and your dream time and you have this connection with the land, what about my connection with this land?
And the debate kicked off with some fiery opinions, as you just heard. Leading the No campaign for the coalition, Jacinta Price, said that if the yes vote is successful, it will divide, not unite the country permanently.
If the yes vote is successful, we will be divided forever. I want to see Australia move forward as one, not two divided. That's why I will be voting no.
Lydia Thorpe left the Greens over this very issue because she thinks the Voice doesn't go far enough. It doesn't have enough power. Well, she gave quite a bizarre spray on the topic today.
You're following the king. The king. We're all bound by the king. And now the poor little blackfellas are begging for a seat at the table and all we get is to become advisors.
The Prime Minister Anthony Albanese then held a press conference to celebrate his success of having his legislation for the referendum pass the Senate. He started his press conference by reading the Uluru Statement of the Heart, and he appealed to non-Indigenous Australians to walk beside their fellow Indigenous citizens.
This is your time, your chance, your opportunity to be a part of making history. It will be a moment of national unity, a chance to make our nation even greater, a gracious chapter in the great story of Australia. This once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to lift our great nation even higher.
The Prime Minister argues this is a chance to unite the country, but if the Senate was anything to go by today, it's already causing enormous division, not unity. Numerous polls suggest support is waning. As The Australian's political editor Simon Benson writes today, if the referendum were to be held this weekend, the chances of a yes vote appear slim. He writes, presumably the private polling and the government's own research is showing the same thing. He writes that Albanese argues a failed referendum will risk putting back the cause of reconciliation and risk international embarrassment for the country, a catastrophic moment for the nation. But if failure indeed appears likely, then Albanese will have to consider whether to pull the referendum completely or carve out the voice to Parliament and go with constitutional recognition only. As Benson points out, on the question of Indigenous recognition in the Constitution alone, a referendum would succeed with an overwhelming majority. But the Prime Minister today argued that the campaign hasn't kicked off yet, and perhaps he's right. Perhaps when it gets into full swing, perhaps people will change their minds and will be persuaded to vote yes. Perhaps the mood will shift as he hopes. But Albanese could also be putting his head in the sand and refusing to acknowledge the reality that this is right now looking like it will fail. Opposition leader Peter Dutton led the charge against the Voice in question time today.
Prime Minister, why are Australians being asked to make the biggest change to Australia's constitution in decades, creating a permanent new body without any details how it would operate?
The referendum is very clear. It's about two things.
Order.
It's about recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our constitution. And it's about listening to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on matters that affect them.
What areas of public policy will not be within the scope of the Voice?
If she listened more carefully to the debate, she wouldn't have to answer that question. What I find absolutely appalling
the leader of the opposition will please reject it.
You are throwing red herrings.
That question that Susan Ley just asked, what areas of public policy will the Voice not apply to? Well, that is one question that is resonating with Australians. The latest polls show support is down to 49%. But Anthony Albanese doesn't want to speak about the polls. When asked at the press conference today, he instead spoke about having faith in the Australian people.
I have faith in the Australian people. And I have faith that we will put our case, and I'll ask people to comment as well, but I've always had faith in the Australian people. You can't predetermine these things, and it's hard to win a referendum. We knew that at the beginning. We knew that. We know that that's the case. We expect continued misinformation, but we will run a positive campaign about why this makes a difference and say to Australians, as I think my friend Mark Dreyfus here just said, where's the downside here? What are people risking here?